You're listening to Head Voice, bringing you inside the minds of singers and sound creators who are redefining what it means to make music with the voice. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Evan, and this week we're talking to Shannon McNulty. Shannon's a lot of things it would take a while to name all of, but foremost, she is choral director at Marlboro High School, director of education for the vocal company, and a member of Boston-based group Blacklight.
During this episode, we talked about how Shannon first got into recording and production, her journey with music education, and what sort of philosophy she uses when teaching. Stay tuned.
Because I think I have tiny ear canals. Every earbud hurts. Anyway, you can start off with that little tidbit.
Every
earbud hurts.
Well, welcome everybody. We are here with Shannon McNulty. Thanks for joining us today, Shannon.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This is quite an honor. I'm so excited.
Yeah,
I'm so excited.
We're super happy to have you on. As we usually do, kind of want to start from the beginning. Where were you raised, and what was the musical IQ of your family growing up?
Yeah. So, wow. Okay. So, I grew up in Brewster, New York, which is about an hour north of Manhattan. Mm-hmm. And I think probably like every other person you've had on the show, like my parents say that I was singing before I could talk. Music, I feel like, was just in our house all the time. My dad raised me on the Beatles, lots of Bonnie Raitt and Eric Clapton, just like some really, really classic rock music, which is still like my favorite to listen to. And my family used to do the music at our church. So once a month there was something called Family Mass, and we would prepare for it. In our kind of big music/dance room, because I used to Irish step dance as well. So we had this big space, and we would practice, for a couple of days, and then we would go do the music at Mass on that Sunday.
Fun chat family.
Yeah, I know, right? So that was cool. And probably one of the things that I've only kind of recently come to realize and appreciate was how young I was when my kind of recording and technology journey began. My dad had a 4-track tape player
Cool.
that he would let me just futz around with. And when I was this is so embarrassing but hilarious. When I was in 6th and 7th grade, I had a girl group. This is like the time of the Spice Girls. So I had this little girl group of friends. We used to convince our teacher to let us go out in the hall and sing during free time. My teachers, I know, my teachers must have hated me. I was the kid that would rush to get their work done and be I need to see these 3 people out in the hall so we can practice our song. Just so stupid. But they were, I don't know, I guess they saw something in me because they were always super accommodating and nice about it. But I started writing songs and using my dad's 4-track recorder and just learning how to layer on top of myself, and then started writing songs. And when I was in 8th grade, my parents actually got me, they bought me time at a recording studio, and I got to record my first album of original music as a 13-year-old.
Okay,
I know, it was my
so
little
cool.
8th grade graduation present.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so no one can see this CD. It is locked away in the attic at my parents' house. But it exists, and I feel like that was just such a cool way to kind of get my feet wet. And then once I did it, I kind of forgot about it for a long time. I went to Ithaca and joined Premium Blend my sophomore year and started doing the a cappella thing.
Yeah. And
anyway, eventually it all kind of came back when I met my husband, who was in the MIT Logarithms. And they kind of famously have their own recording studio on campus at MIT. So I was wow, that's really cool. Can I go and check it out? And kind of started my interest in recording again. And yeah,
that's pretty neat.
It's just so funny how full circle
Yeah.
It all is. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you kind of mentioned the girls group was an 8th grade situation, at that point were you like, oh, this is just like a fun thing I'm doing? Or like when you got to high school?
Oh no, I was gonna be famous. That was no, I remember I was so mad. Like it was like right when American Idol was like starting to become a thing, and I wanted to go audition, and my parents like wouldn't let me do it, which like bless them, because now I look back on it and I'm like, yeah, like this was exactly what I'm where I'm supposed to be now. But at the time I was so mad at them for not letting me go live my dream.
I've heard so many American Idol horror stories too, of just
Yeah.
like how awful the process is. So.
Yeah. And like now, like I'll talk about it with my students and they're like, well, don't you like watch The Voice or like watch these shows? And I'm like, no, like it feels so exploitive to me. Like, I don't know. It's just, I'd much rather like toil and do my thing, you know, and like be proud of the music you make rather than just like kind of be at the whim of other people. But yeah, it's it was, and I'm trying to remember what the original question was.
Well, going into high school, I'm assuming that choir and things was happening.
Yeah.
Were you choir nerding it up?
Kind of, yeah. So I went to a Catholic high school, John F. Kennedy Catholic in Somers, New York. So it's a pretty small school. Like my class was like 130 kids when we graduated. So the choir was pretty small. I had 2 choir directors while I was there. And yeah, I remember enjoying the experience. I don't remember feeling like particularly challenged by it. Which like not to say that like I was great or anything like that, but it was very much like a lot of like the stuff that I harp on now as a choir teacher. Like I feel like we did a lot of like, okay, like I'll sing this, you sing it back to me, sing it back to me, instead of like developing like reading skills and you know, the idea of the independent musician as opposed to being reliant on a conductor. So I actually didn't do choir when I was a senior, and I decided I was going to take music theory instead. And that was also a horribly embarrassing experience because up to that point, like I had never read music. I had a really strong ear, which, you know, really kind of like got me through everything. And like I literally didn't know what a quarter note was. Like I didn't know like how to read it. And I would like get these works, like, you know, those worksheets, you ever see them where it's like here's 4 quarter notes, like write the counts under them.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't do that. And I would like get it wrong. And my teacher would be like, you're so funny. I'm like, no, like I really actually need help. But I was too embarrassed to be like, no, I actually am like really dumb and I need your help. So when I went to college, I remember being at my audition for when you go to Ithaca, like in the first week, you go in and you sing a piece and then do a sight reading exercise for all the different conductors, and then they place you in your ensemble. And I walked in and they were like, okay, so like here's your sight singing exercise, and the first pitch is E, and they played on the piano, and they were like, okay, like take a couple minutes and go. And I literally started laughing because I thought they were joking. I didn't know that you could do that. I didn't know you could look at a piece of music and then sing it without hearing it first. I started laughing and they were like, are you okay? And I was like, I'm actually going to have to do this. Okay. And then I just panicked for like a minute, and then I think I went like la 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 la. I just like yeah, and you know I got put in the group that needed to learn how to sight read. So yeah, but that was good for me. It was exactly where I needed to be.
So when you were at Ithaca, you studied vocal performance coupled with the music education kind of realm.
I did.
Did you know before you got to Ithaca? Did you know that was what you wanted to do, or is that something you kind of figured out once you got there?
So I had a voice teacher when I was in high school who told me that if I didn't go for performance and only performance, that I was a copping out, basically. That, you know, that education was like what performers did when they couldn't perform. And so I was like committed. I was going to be an opera singer. I really wanted to study like pop music, but I just didn't think that was feasible at the time. I looked at Berkeley, but ultimately decided to go to Ithaca. And yeah, so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go in on this classical thing. It'll give me like the technique and all of the stuff that I need to like be able to sing whatever it is I want to after the fact. And then, so I was just a performance major. And then when I was a sophomore, I was in the women's chorale with Janet Galvan. and we took a trip to Ireland, which was incredible. Like all expenses paid by the college. Just got to like do a tour. Yeah, do a tour of Ireland. I think it was a grant that they had received years before that. But while we were there, we went to, I think it was called like St. Mary's, and it was a home for adults with special needs that like, you know, they were basically living there full time with caretakers, and we sang with them. We were standing like in a circle, and the staff there was really, really, really helpful. They were like, you know, just so that you're aware, you know, we have like a range of people coming in, but, you know, you can always make a connection with them, even if it seems like maybe they're not like with it or not in the room. They are, you know, you can like tap the beat on their arm, or just like go over and stand near them and sing with them. And so I was like, okay, like I'm going to do this. So I went over, and there was a woman, and I started to sing with her, and I started like tapping the beat kind of gently on her hand, and her eyes lit up. It was like all of a sudden she was there, and she started doing this, like rocking back and forth in her chair. And it was just like the coolest thing to see music like bring that, you know, to someone. And that was when I decided I wanted to teach. That was like the moment. That was the catalyst. So I came back from that trip, and I was like a second semester of my sophomore year. And I was like, so I want to add this other degree. And Dr. Galvan was like, okay, like we got to catch you up. So then I had to do all the, like the stuff that you do as a freshman, all the observations. And I wound up still graduating on time somehow. But yeah, that was when I decided to add the ed degree. And I'm really, really obviously very glad that I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coming out of school, how soon after were you, did you go to Marlborough, or was there any thing in between?
So there was maybe a 6-month period. So when I met Tyson, my husband, I was still at Ithaca, and I had a semester left. So like the summer, before I went back for my last semester, I moved to Boston, and I worked at a Bright Horizons, like a daycare center in downtown Boston. So when I graduated in December, I felt pretty strongly about, and like it's kind of gutsy of me, I guess, but I felt pretty strongly about not starting at a job in the middle of the year. I really wanted to like interview and like start at the start of a school year. I still like, I'm kind of like shocked now thinking back on it and thinking about how challenging it is to get a job. Like that was really, it was really kind of obnoxious of me, but it worked. So yeah, so I went back to Bright Horizons for that period of time, and they were wonderful because they knew that I wasn't planning on making a career out of working there. So they were really supportive about letting me go on interviews and things like that. But I wound up seeing that the job in Marlborough was posted, and one of the logarithms, Steve Nicholson, was actually a Marlborough graduate. So he was like, hey, you should apply. I think this would work well for you. So I just put in the application, and I went in and had 3 interviews, and I got the job, which was, it was the only, like, this is the only interview I got. Like, I didn't interview anywhere else. So thank God.
That's insane.
Yeah, but no, yeah, it's, so I've been at Marlborough now since I started in September of 2008.
Awesome. And what were you doing when you first started?
So I was doing, at the time, the 8th graders were at our high school. So it was an 8 through 12 school. So I had 8th grade chorus, mixed chorus, which is 9 through 12. And then the auditioned group, which is the a cappella choir, the 20 kids. And then I was also teaching guitar, which is, I don't play guitar, just for the record. I've tried to teach myself many times, and either I've been like stubborn and not want to cut my nails, or I just like don't have the finger strength or the patience to develop it. So yeah, I was teaching guitar, and what was the other thing? I think I was teaching honors theory my first year, which is also hilarious because I was a terrible theory student. But actually teaching it has made me much better at it. In case any parents out there are worried right now.
You're like sight sing this thing, and they're like, we don't know how. I'm like, I'm not gonna do it. You have to.
I know, right? I'm certainly not making you do it because I can't. No, yeah. Well, that's the thing now is like I actually love sight singing now. I think just because I had having not had the skills going into school, I just had such an appreciation for it once I figured out. It was like a puzzle, you know. I love puzzles. Yeah. So it was like just like this cool thing that enabled me to make music without the assistance of anyone else, which is how I try to like pitch it to my kids too. It's like, I know that you feel like you need me, but my ultimate goal is that you don't need me, because like you're only going to have me for like 3 more years. So what are you going to do after high school if you still are relying on me for everything? Yeah.
Well, speaking of unassisted music, like where does a cappella kind of fit into this whole journey and narrative? Like was Premium Blend your first experience?
It was. Yeah. So I went to an Ithacappella show. I think it must have been in the fall of my sophomore year. Like I had friends that were in Premium Blend my freshman year of college, but I didn't hang out with a lot of the music kids as a freshman. I think I had this notion that like I needed to have friends outside of music, so like I could, you know, be in music and then not. But that's just silly. Like I need music in my life in 100% of the ways. So so I didn't really get to know a lot of the friends that like eventually they were in Premium Blend already and are now like my friends forever until I was a sophomore. I went to an Ithacappella concert, and then I was like, I want to do that. I want to do that. So so I auditioned for PB and got in. And also it was a bit selfish on my part because I knew that my friend Victoria had arranged Sunday Morning by No Doubt, which is like my favorite song of all time. And I was like, I need to be in this group and I need to sing that song. Like that has to happen. So, and it did. So, yay. So yeah. And then I was in Premium Blend, for the rest of school. And I'm still pretty involved with them. Alumni stuff. Mel Daneke and I just planned, and we had the 20th reunion for Premium Blend, which is crazy and awesome. And that was really fun. That was this past April. And I think, as I said before, so I met Tyson because of being in Premium Blend. We toured Boston my junior year. We did a gig at Wellesley High School, and we met at that gig. I'm really good friends with the director at Wellesley now, and he likes to claim responsibility for my life. So, but so I met Tyson and the Logs, and they're like, we're still all like best friends, and they were the ones that really got me hooked into the recording aspect. And I think that's how I really stayed hooked into a cappella after school, because I knew that by the time I was a senior, a super senior, that I wanted to do recording.
Yeah.
And I was almost like mad that I didn't know that was a thing earlier, because I think I would have potentially pursued that as a career, if not education, just because I love it so much. But when I graduated, I recorded like Voice Streams album. I did an album for the Wellesley Blue Notes. I did, you guys know Jess Chen. I met Jess recording the Allegrettos.
Baby.
I did I did the self-titled album. That was me. But eventually it was like I had to stop tracking because in the editing, it was just taking too much time on top of all of the stuff I was doing at Marlboro. So eventually I stopped. But at that time, I was actually when I got involved with TVC, and I was doing outreach. I think everyone at TVC started doing outreach, and we all suck at it. Like just cold calling, cold emailing people. Yeah. And I guess the thing that I liked was like talking to people and just like learning more about what it was that they were doing. And then eventually that kind of made its way into doing more educational stuff for them. But so everything like kind of just worked out in that, like when I was needed to move away from tracking, I got involved with what was happening there. And I'm really lucky that all this stuff has wound up lining up.
Did you self-teach recording stuff, or did you learn that from somebody? Or?
Well, kind of. So as you guys both know, it's a lot of trial and error, like regardless of who's kind of showing you the ropes. So my first experiences with it were Michael Miller, who now he lives in Los Angeles now. He was in the Logarithms. He was he kind of like showed me the basics of like, you know, like arming a track and like setting stuff up and the basics of Melodyne. And then that was like the summer that I lived in Boston. And then when I went back to Ithaca that fall, that was when Rob Dietz was there. So Yeah, little Rob Dietz. He's gonna hate me for saying that. So I've known Rob. Oh God, I'm not gonna. I've known Rob a really long time. I've known Rob since he was in high school. So Rob was starting at Ithaca, and we all knew that like he was bringing a lot, like a wealth of knowledge, even as like a 17, 18-year-old to what he was doing. So he tracked the Premium Blend album in my room. And he would just kind of let me hang out and like watch what he was doing. At that point I knew what was happening, and he'd let me like kind of jump in and do some stuff, but that was just observing was great. So then like I had some time away and I tracked a bit, and in 2012 I had wanted to do Soup to Nuts with Bill and Deke, and but like finding the time was really difficult, because like getting time off from teaching is like getting, especially that many days in a row is tough, because they do it like over a course of a week. So I was like, well, how can we make this work? And I was thinking about it, and I was like, there's like potential here for what I'm about to learn at this seminar to be applicable to what it is I'm doing at Marlboro. So I sat down with the principal at the time. Her name is Deb Roy. She's wonderful. She's since retired. And Maureen Grulick, who was our interim superintendent, and was like, hey, I think this could be really good. I think we need to tap into this group of students that we have at our school who are very interested in music, but don't want to be in a performing group and don't want to take like a traditional music class. Like they all have this like technological interest, and they all quote unquote make beats, but like we could be doing something with that. So can I go do this thing? And then when I come back, we can talk about how we might make it into a class. And they were like, yeah, go. So I got to go to Soup to Nuts, which was amazing. Really, really awesome. I got to meet, while I was there, Chris Crawford, who was Acapella Records founder and now works at Spotify. And Matt Chinnery is over in the UK doing recording. Who else? Patrick's up in Maine now doing like, anyway, I love those guys and I miss them. So I came back and I was like, all right, this is how this could work. Basically, we're going to do Soup to Nuts, but it's going to be over the course of an entire semester. We're going to teach them how to work in a collaborative setting. We're going to give them, we're going to teach them, this is how a microphone works. This is how you arm a microphone. This is how you set the gain. This is how you do all these things. Basically bringing them up to through editing in Melodyne. I was like, I'm only doing a cappella because I have no experience recording instruments. And that's like, as much as I do want to know about that, that's like a whole nother ball game in terms of like, anyway. So we're only going to do voices, and we're just going to get the kids out of their comfort zones and get them being creative. Because like, what more does like an employer look for an employee besides skills? It's like, malleability. Like, can you in these situations like try to do something that might make you a little uncomfortable? So yeah, that's kind of where we started, and they gave me some money to like buy a recording, like an isolation booth and a new computer. And over the course of, gosh, I guess it's been like six years. Jesus. Okay. Yeah, I guess so. 2012. The class is just like grown and grown. Yeah. To the point where I have like a backlog of music that has to be released. I have to finish mixing these songs that these kids, because they're just like chugging out repertoire. They built a brand new lab at Marlboro High School over the summer. I am so proud of our district and our city, because they get it. Like, they just understand that investing in arts is important. Yeah. And so crucial for developing the whole child. So they invested like $80,000 in this renovation. I now have a lab with 25 iMacs, outfitted with Pro Tools, Melodyne, Sound Toys, Fab Filter, like everything. Like, cool. It's crazy, so that they can just sit there and like not feel limited in what they're doing, and be using all of these amazing tools that if they decide to, pursue this further, that's what they're going to be using. Yeah. So, now they have that to put on their resume. Like, I know how to use Pro Tools. Right. So Yeah.
That's really awesome. And props to you for starting that too, because obviously it's been a hit. And like, I also think it's interesting that like, there's not too much formal education on acapella or acapella production. So bringing it to a high school is a really neat concept.
It is tricky in that, like, you know, I'm very passionate about kind of our little, you know, niche of acapella, but
Yeah.
you know, a lot of the kids have that appreciation or interest, but a lot of them don't. So it's like trying to balance between the two of like,
Yeah.
you know, dropping some knowledge on them in terms of like, you know, this is what's possible using only your voice. Just kind of helping them, you know, even if they don't come to love acapella, just like teaching them appreciation.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Since you're, you know, the program keeps going year after year, like, how do you keep kids? Obviously, to me, I understand why it's like a dope thing, but like,
Yeah.
what like is the hook for the kids to like get them into it if they're not already like an Aka nerd or something?
Well, so that's one of the things we're actually challenged with right now. We have, because it's a new class and we've invested a lot of money in it, we've gone from, you know, the classes previously were pretty small, which was nice for a collaborative environment, but now I've got like 25. So I've had to change the structure of it a little bit. So like the level, so far we've only had a level 1 and a level 2 class. And it used to be that they were both collaborative projects, but I've had to make it now so that level 1 is more of just like teaching the basics kind of in your own lane. So we do projects in GarageBand, and you know, we have like a book that we follow, and they're learning like all of the terminology. And then once they have that under their belts, they can take the level 2 class, and that's where like the real kind of magic and fun starts to happen of these sorts of collaborative, you know, it's basically like, you know, you get in a room instead of like with an arrangement, like a written out arrangement, because I'm not teaching arranging, you know, it's like, okay guys, what do you hear? How would you do that? Go do it. Go in the booth and like make that weird noise, you know, and then let's put some crystals on it and see what happens. Yeah. So I think that helps, is like having that step. They know that like more is coming. But I will say, like, it does dwindle, like as it goes through. Like there are some kids that just take it because they need the requirement to graduate, and that's fine. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea.
Sure.
But in general, the kids are pretty psyched about it. Yeah. Even the ones that get put in there because they just get put in there by the guidance department. That's my job, though, right? Is like if they get put in there and they're like, "Yeah, I don't like this," I'm like, "Well, you will. Give me 2
I'll
weeks.
Make you like it."
Yeah.
So you mentioned that kind of started around 2012 as the program kind of built. And then on the flip side, you started TVC in 2013?
I think so. I think that's about right.
Around then?
I was living in Waltham, so that seems... Sorry, not that that makes any difference to you,
No,
but that makes sense in my mind, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously you're doing these two kind of dual things side by side over the past couple of years. And you mentioned that you started doing mainly outreach, but obviously now you're director of education. So can you kind of speak to what you've done starting from scratch with the education program and how you've kind of built it out over the years while simultaneously being the director, the choral director at a high school?
Well, lack of sleep is one thing. No, that it's been a lot of fun. I have to, the whole like mindset behind TVC is really just about, you know, making great music and enabling people to make, you know, music that they want to make, but necessarily can't do it themselves, right? So whether that's, you know, doing production stuff with people or live shows, or, you know, the educational portion, it's really, it was cool to be able to come on board to a team that really like didn't just, you know, have ideas about like, oh, we'll just like do these educational programs. It's like everyone really believes in the power of educating everybody. And it's one of the core values of TVC. So working with Ben Stevens at first was so much fun, and I love him so much. He was doing the kind of the summer sessions at that point, and I was working with him doing high school programs. So we would do like next level high school or a cappella eds. And eventually, when he was starting to have less and less time to do that stuff, so that's when I started to kind of come into the fold. And that was summer of 2015. And I attended my first Next Level, which was Next Level Bozio with Eric Bozio from Cluster, which was great. And it was like around the 4th of July. We had a really, really fun time. Learned a lot. And then I think the next one I attended, I ran. so it jumped right in. And that was Next Level Boyer, which was amazing. We got to, that summer, he was mixing the Pentatonics album. So, and that was when I met Lanique and Michael, who were like family to me now. Like, it was like such a wild time. But yeah, I just remember we were all in the basement at Sled Dog listening to Ed mix Where Are You Now? And just like watching him work. And it was like fascinating and also just so cool to get like this little sneak peek. I still love that track, that Pentatonics track. I think it's so good. So that was pretty incredible. So yeah, that was the first one I ran. And then I've been planning them since.
Well, in Next Levels and at your high school, kind of underpinning that is this kind of theme of setting people up for success and giving them the resources that they need to be successful. But in a more educational sense, you are on working with ACDA as the Contemporary Acapella Repertoire and Resource Chair. Nailed it. And so can you kind of speak to what that work is about and the
Sure.
who you're working with that for that?
The ACDA position is a new position. Stephen Paparo, who works out at UMass Amherst, is the president of ACDA. And when he was starting in that position, he wanted to start the Repertoire and Resource Chair for Contemporary Acapella. There are lots of different repertoire and resource. We call them R&R chairs. There's treble choir, male choir. I think actually the new ones that were formed. There's LGBTQ choir, and Contemporary Acapella was another one, and then there was one more that's I'm forgetting right now, but I think he attended Camp Acapella and really saw the potential and the need for some guidance for some of the teachers in the state. Not to say that I'm the end-all be-all in any way, shape, or form, but I like enabling people. So just being able to answer questions that people have about, like what piece might I would be a good starting point for my group, or how do I start a group, or why should I even think about doing contemporary a cappella in my program in the first place? Those are things that I feel like I can provide some assistance on. So that's really the point of the role. And the only other states that I know of that have a contemporary a cappella R&R chair, so good on Massachusetts, but the only other two that I know of are California, and it was Deke at first, but he's you talk about busy people. He's like a whole different level of busy, and so he's not doing it anymore. And then Elias Salazar, who is a Next Level graduate who lives down in Tennessee, he's the R&R chair there. Yeah.
Cool. So I guess along these lines, you're obviously doing these multifaceted jobs in different kind of worlds, whether it be at the high school or TVC or with the ACDA. But what sort of teaching philosophy do you have, and do you try to instill when you're in any of these circumstances, I guess?
It's really, I think this has evolved for me over many years, but where I'm at right now is just the importance of students feeling empowered and self-sufficient.
Yeah.
So all too often you hear, like, especially like, it's funny when I talk with like my students' parents, I hear these stories all the time about like, oh, well, I was in choir, but I wasn't very good, so I stopped doing it. And I'm like, well, did you like being in choir? Oh yeah, I loved it. Well, why did you stop? Like, I love, playing video games. I'm not great. I'm awful at it, but like I enjoy doing it, so I'm not going to stop. I'm also not going to go to a Super Smash Brothers tournament because I'll be out immediately. But like, the it's just there seems to be this idea that, you know, music is for like people that have a gift or a talent instead of something that can be, you know, being something that can be cultivated, that, you know, practice is what, you know, really makes the musician. And so I try to like really hammer that point home with my own students that, you know, everybody in here is of a different ability level, but it's not about that. It's about how hard you work and how much you want to make the music. So that culture is really, really important. And by the end of their 4 years with me, it's really important to me that the kids feel like they don't need me anymore. Because I'm not going to be able to flap my arms around in front of them forever. You know, either they need to go find another conductor to flap their arms around, or, you know, they can just get together with their friends and feel like they can sing and not feel embarrassed, you know, or sheepish, like, oh, well, I'm not that great and therefore I shouldn't. Like, it's garbage, right? If you love to do it, you should do it. You don't need special permission. So that makes me really happy. I have one of my students that graduated last year. His name's Noah Ogden. He is taking a gap year from school, and he's just been like crushing. He's just like been putting out content, like at least like 3 things a month. And I'm just so happy. It's just, that's so rewarding to see as a teacher, that like he took music production, he took choir, you know, he's talk about like gifted kids. Like, he's an incredibly talented singer and songwriter. So it's just really awesome to see him putting that to work and doing it. Right. But not feeling like he needs, you know, to be like discovered or like given special permission to like put content out there. Like he loves it. So he does it. Yeah.
Well, as we near the end of the episode, there's unfortunately a lot of things that we don't have time to get to, but I think it's important to acknowledge that, like, in an era of hyphenates, that you're like the ultimate hyphenate person of just, you know, you're doing all these different things, and you know, there's Blacklight that we haven't been able to get to, and your work at festivals, but like I think it's worth asking how you, because you clearly are doing so much for so many people to make their lives better.
Aww.
Like, but you also, may I say, are a mom of 2, and like, it's just like, how do you stay, you know, energized and positive and sane in all of this?
The people, man, like the community is so awesome. I feel so supported by everybody. I have to like give obviously like the biggest, special, most loving shout out to my husband. He is really the great enabler because he enables me. And it's just everything's so warm and welcoming. I love having conversations, you know, like just with the people, with everybody. Just going to festivals, interacting. Honestly, Blacklight has been like a huge thing for me, because up until I joined that group, I wasn't singing. And I realized what a huge gap that was in my life. You know, I'll talk about enabling other people to like go out and sing and do their stuff. Like I was so busy enabling other people that I wasn't taking care of myself.
Right.
So I'm like really so glad that I met Craig at a Next Level. And I saw that he posted the auditions for it and just decided to give it a shot. Because now I have, you know, 5 new great friends that I love singing with, and I get to do that once a week. Tyson comes home early on Tuesdays so that mommy can go to Blacklight rehearsal. And that's awesome. I really missed singing, and I'm really enjoying not just singing, but singing with these people. So, yeah.
That's really heartwarming to hear. I was like smiling the whole time you were talking. I guess just to wrap things up, there's 2 questions that we like to ask our guests. And the first is, what is something that is exciting you in the a cappella sphere or music sphere at this point in time?
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff happening. One, I'm excited about you guys. I love your album, and I've been listening to it quite a bit. So like more of that. It's actually been cool because like I've been thinking more about trying to use looping technology with stuff that we're doing with Blacklight. So we've been talking about that a little bit, and I'll be at your class at Any Voices next weekend to try and soak up what I can. So that's exciting. We have Next Levels that are going to be, the registration for that's going to be opening very soon.
Awesome.
We have 3 sessions going this summer. The first one is Next Level Arrange. And that's going to be June, I think it's the week of June 16th. I don't have my calendar in front of me right now. And then Next Level Direct is going to be in the Boston area. That's going to be the week of the 4th of July. Cool. So that'll be quite a time. And then 2 weeks after that, which is July something or other. I'm so bad. We're on this call on my phone, so I can't look at the dates.
We'll put it in the show notes. We'll put the dates.
Great. That would be delightful. So 2 weeks after that will be Next Level Produce. So
Awesome.
We're very, very excited about that. And if, we'll see how registration is, there is a possibility there are more weeks in the summer, so we can always tax them on the end if we have a lot of demand. So that's exciting. And I'm actually really excited. So Blacklight just finished working on one of Craig, we're working on a bunch of original material that Craig wrote, but we just finished tracking a song called Follow Your Heart, and that's mixed, and that's going to be coming out with a video very, very soon, which I'm excited about. And we're also talking about doing some work with Chris Harrison.
Awesome.
And I'm going to be going out to LA and hopefully seeing him and some other people in a couple weeks. So
Nice.
That's awesome.
That's exciting.
yeah.
Many breaking news stories in this
Yeah.
episode at the end. And then that's a lot of what's on the plate for you. But is there anything else coming up for you that you want to plug or talk about?
Oh, gosh. Well, I guess, so Blacklight's going to be performing at Any Voices next week, as well as the ICHSA quarterfinal on February 9th, which I'm really excited for. Just keep your ears out for more music from us, which I'm so psyched about it. And yeah, I guess that's it. I'm sure there's more.
That's not
I can't
actually
think.
in the sphere of everything that you're doing, but thank you again for joining us. Thank you for weathering all of our collective technical difficulties.
It was a journey.
It was a journey.
I'm glad we made it out.
Yeah. I'm glad we did it though. And we hope to see you next week for a new episode of Head Voice.
Yes.
Thank you,
I
Shannon.
heard sirens in my head from the first time that we met. Thought it was a false alarm. Yeah, it started as a spark. Didn't think we'd come this far, but here we are.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Head Voice. You are now listening to False Alarm by Blacklight Vocals.
I really enjoyed that episode. For me, it was super interesting to hear about how she started that production class at her school.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really neat how she kind of brought her love for a cappella to a high school
Yeah.
and brought it to a different medium.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked to a lot of like creatives on the show, but like she is like up there in terms of just like it's clear like how hardworking she is and how like I think like you were saying that she's kind of synthesized all these elements that she's passionate about into something that really is helping people be passionate about music.
Yeah.
It's like dope.
Absolutely. As Shannon mentioned, we'll be attending Any Voices this weekend, which is a high school festival in Chelmsford, Massachusetts. We'll be teaching a looping class, and Anthony will be there as well, teaching and masterclassing.
Make sure to say hi if you're there, and if you can't be there, we'll take some Instagram stories, so go head over to that IG and hit the follow button. Give us a like on Facebook if you have time for that, want to do that. I don't know, that's up to you.
Got no time to click a button.
I think if you're a longtime listener of the podcast, you may have noticed that in the past, after the music ends, once in a while I'll put some bloopers recording the intro for this episode. I just could not say Shannon McNulty and can barely say it now, so stick around after the jump for some of that. And next week we will be joined by Lisa Forkish, and we're really excited for that episode. So if you don't want to miss that, make sure you subscribe on the podcast app, Overcast, Spotify, we're everywhere. Let us know if we're not any place. You know, also be excited as we transition to being a fully ASMR podcast. And so we hope you guys check us out. How much do you hate this? How much do you hate this? How much do you hate this?
I didn't like that.
Goodbye. And I'm Evan, and this week we're joined by Shannon McNulty.
McNulty.
And I'm Evan, and this week we're talking to Shannon McNulty. And I'm Evan, and this week we're talking to Shannon McNulty.
And I'm Evan, and this week we're talking with Shannon McNulty.
And I'm Evan, and this week we're talking to Shannon McNulty.
I can't.
Why? And I'm Evan, and this week we're talking to Shannon McNulty. I hate this. I'm just using what I have already.
Can I do it? And I'm Kayla, and this week we're talking to Shannon McNulty. I can't.
Give it your best shot.
And I'm Kayla, and this week we're talking to I can't get through. I can't get through to it. And this week we're talking to Shannon McNulty.